Hello and welcome to V-Knowledge on Cinema. I'm Victor Omoayo, and today's film is Gone Baby Gone, starring Casey Affleck, Michelle Monaghan, Morgan Freeman, Ed Harris, and Amy Ryan, directed by Ben Affleck, written by Ben Affleck and Aaron Stockard, and released in 2007. There is one pressing question that resides at the forefront of this film. Is doing the right thing always the correct choice? This is a question that not only the characters in the film ask themselves, but it is one that viewers will contemplate and debate over long after the end credits have finished rolling. Gone Baby Gone stars Casey Affleck and Michelle Monaghan as Patrick Kenzie and Angie Gennaro, respectively, two private investigators hired to solve the case of a missing 4-year-old girl named Amanda who was abducted from her Boston neighborhood. Along with police captain Jack Doyle, played by Morgan Freeman, and detective Remy Bressant, played by Ed Harris, the four set out to rescue little Amanda. But their investigation, however, suddenly takes on unexpected and dire dimensions. The moral tug-of-war in this film is between two sets of ideas. One is absolutism, which states that there is only one moral standard to be upheld in all situations. And the other is relativism, which states that moral standards are consistent, yet are flexible depending on the situation. And there are 4 specific scenes in this film in which both moral stances clash, and it's these scenes that leave a lasting impact. Now, I highly recommend checking out this film if you haven't seen it before, because we're about to get into some spoilerific territory. Otherwise, if you don't mind spoilers, please stick around. As the film opens with various shots of Boston neighborhoods, seeing residents go about their day-to-day, we hear some voiceover narration by Patrick, who remarks that he always believed it was the things that we don't choose that makes us who we are. Our cities, our neighborhoods, our families. His views gives us something to pontificate as we're following the events of the film. Shortly afterwards, we're introduced to Lionel and Bea McCready, the uncle and aunt of the missing little girl Amanda, who desperately plead for Patrick and Angie to take on the case. When they arrive at Amanda's home, they make their way through the large gaggle of reporters, camera crews, and police officers standing guard in the streets, with residents milling about amidst the commotion. They meet with Amanda's mother, Helene McCready, played by Amy Ryan, Lionel's sister, and Bea's sister-in-law. To say that Helene wouldn't be a recipient of any Mother of the Year awards is putting it mildly. She's what modern terminology would classify as a ratchet. She makes money as a drug mule for a local drug dealer named Cheese, gets wasted at a bar most of the time, augmenting her cocaine use with some booze for good measure, and she's generally a neglectful mom, more concerned with her own gratification than anything else. Even when she confesses to the investigators that she hid hundreds of thousands of dollars in drug money after a deal went south, Helene remains blasé about her own daughter's disappearance. It isn't until she and the investigators come upon her boyfriend's dead and battered body that the reality of her situation finally becomes apparent. Eventually, the investigators are led to believe that Cheese is holding Amanda hostage, and they decide to set up a remote exchange to swap the drug loot for the little girl. Tragically, the entire exchange gets botched, ending in sudden gunfire and the sound of someone splashing into the murky waters below. All that remains is Amanda's favorite doll, Mirabelle. 2 months elapse since the failed rescue. Everyone, including Helene, mourns the poor child's loss, and life moves on. Just when the tragic case recedes into the back of everyone's minds, Patrick hears about another child abduction case, this time involving a known pedophile named Corwin Earl, who was recently released from prison. He arrives at the pervert's home with detectives Remy Bressant and his partner Nick Poole, and as the 3 attempt to rescue the boy, Poole gets shot in the neck by one of the other suspects in the home. Patrick quickly rushes into the house and finds Earl cowering into a corner, and discovers the body of a 7-year-old boy inside the bathroom. Enraged at the sight, Patrick puts a bullet into the back of that sick bastard's head. Now, in my view, Patrick executing Earl was the right call. Not only did this guy kidnap and murder a child, but despite his history of child molestation, he was released from prison only to do it again. Just what would happen if Patrick chose to arrest Earl instead? The same revolving door routine of arrest, prison, and eventual freedom? No way, This man had his chance to serve out his time and seek rehabilitation, only this time another child unfortunately paid the price. Shortly after this incident, Remy's partner Nick dies of his wounds in the hospital. Remy tries to assuage Patrick's heavy guilt over killing Earl, and talks about a time when he planted an ounce of heroin on an abusive drug-dealing father living in a stash house with his little son. As a result, the man was sentenced to 7 years to life in prison. Here, Patrick takes on the moral absolutist position, while Remy assumes the moral relativist stance. Remy offers a relativist rationale for his actions, saying that sending the father to prison was the right thing to do, considering that a child's life was in danger. Patrick mentions that a priest told him that murder is always wrong, regardless of the circumstances, to which Remy replies, "Depends on who you do it to." Reflecting back to Patrick's killing of the pedophile, although I still believe it was justified, that does not mean that I also believe in on-the-spot executions for such cases every single time. Still, as a viewer, it's mad easy for me to approve of Patrick's actions, but if I place myself in his position, would I be able to pull the trigger? I'm not so sure. Would you? Even in Remy's case, he does concede that the drug dealer's son could very well be on the same low-down path of crime like his old man. So who has the moral high ground after all? The moral tug-of-war between absolutism versus relativism reaches its most complex battle in the climactic scene where Patrick, after discovering that Amanda's abduction was fabricated by Remy and her uncle Lionel, confronts the mastermind of the scheme, Captain Jack Doyle, at his home. We see little Amanda, alive and all smiles and giggles, much to Patrick's shock. Doyle urgently persuades the young private investigator to leave the entire case behind, that Amanda finally has a chance at a happy and healthy life, free from a dangerous environment filled with abuse and neglect. Patrick stands his ground, pointing out that he promised Helene that he would find her daughter, and that he wouldn't forgive himself if he reneged on his word. Here, both Patrick and Doyle are motivated by arguably selfish reasons. For Doyle, raising Amanda enables him to replace his own daughter, who was kidnapped and killed many years before. For Patrick, it is also a matter of self-righteously reclaiming moral superiority, which he felt he lost after killing the pedophile. While the actions of Doyle and his cohorts were ethically dubious to say the least, their motives aren't tied to self-gratification. All they want is to provide a secure life for Amanda. Recalling Remy's rescue of the little boy in his case, there is no certainty that Amanda's future would be better and brighter. It is all supposition. Which leads us back to Helene, who honestly is barely fit to take care of herself, much less a 4-year-old child. Earlier in the film, Patrick and Angie catch a glimpse of Amanda's room, which reflects the severe lack of attention Helene affords her child. We see bare, dingy, dirt-colored walls with a mattress in one corner of the room. It looks like a jail cell. At the end of the film, Patrick reunites Amanda with her mother, who expresses relief and elation in front of the news cameras. Later, Patrick visits Helene at her home as she is getting ready for a date with some dude she met during the publicity of Amanda's return. Patrick elects to babysit her kid while she goes off to have fun, and before she leaves, she casually gives Amanda her favorite doll Mirabelle without saying a word of goodbye to her. Patrick appears to have a twinge of regret for his decision when Amanda says her doll's name is Annabelle, not Mirabelle, implying that Helene really hasn't changed, and that she's too neglectful to even know the name of her daughter's favorite toy. Watching the ending, I think back to Patrick's opening voiceover where he says that the things that makes us who we are the things we don't choose, such as our neighborhoods and families. I would also add the news media to Patrick's statement, in light of the sensationalized coverage and portrayal of Helene herself near the final moments of the film. As she's getting ready to leave, she tells Patrick about her media appearances on TV shows since her daughter's return, from an interview with Meredith Vieira to a show called American Victim, which is the film's subtle critique on how ordinary people in such awful situations are, in a way, glamorized and presented as sympathetic and heroic figures, when in actuality, they are much more likely the opposite of such idealistic, nuance-free portrayals. The news cameras may see Helene as the loving mother who never gave up hope, but really though, she's only 2 steps away from being Monique's character in Precious. Yikes! Also, if our environments and families are the forces that ultimately shape us, then in the context of the ending, I'd say that Amanda's future doesn't seem very promising. After all, Helene never gave a damn about her until she was abducted, and even then, it wasn't until Helene feared for her own safety. Also, with Lionel's arrest for the staged kidnapping, her sister-in-law B is forbidden to visit Amanda, so there goes what could have been something of a safe haven and support system out the window. And is Patrick really going to stick around and keep watch over Amanda for the rest of her childhood, like some kind of watchful guardian, a protector, a dark knight? Personally, I take the relativist perspective in this situation. I think Amanda had a much better chance of a positive upbringing with Doyle, as selfish as he was. Quite frankly, I say that an uncertain, yet seemingly optimistic future sounds better than a certain and pessimistic present. Of course, some may disagree and say that Helene is Amanda's mother, and that she must remain with her on those grounds. What do you think? So, who's right? Who's wrong? Just what is the right thing to do? The answers depend on your perspective, and Gone Baby Gone offers no easy end-all be-all solutions. And it's this open-ended ambiguity that truly makes this film an exceptional narrative. And as always, thank you for watching. I'm Victor Omoayo, and you can find more video essay goodness on my V Knowledge channel.